All right, let's dive into a really wild, mind-bending idea. We're going to explore this thought that many of the systems all around us, corporations, markets, even social media, might not just be systems. What if? What if they're actually alive? I mean, you've probably felt this, right? That feeling that the company you work for, or even this very platform, has its own mission, its own agenda, almost separate from the people running it. Well, the idea we're digging into today says that's not just a feeling. It might be a reality we can actually see and measure. And this quote just hits it right on the head. We're moving past poetry here. This isn't a metaphor anymore. The argument is that based on how they behave, these huge entities actually qualify as a form of life. It's less about philosophy and more like a new kind of biology. So how on earth do we get there? Well, it all starts by changing how we define life. For centuries, we've defined it by its substrate, basically what it's made of. Carbon, cells, all that wet stuff. But there's a new way to look at it, and that's by its process, what it does. I mean, if a system can organize itself, if it consumes resources to stay alive, and if it actively works to keep existing, isn't it alive? Who cares if it's made of cells or computer code? Okay, so if we're going to go out and spot these hidden organisms, we need some kind of field guide, right? The source material gives us 4 key markers, 4 signs that separate a simple machine from a true living macroorganism. Let's break them down. First up is a mouthful, functional modular autonomy. It sounds super technical, I know, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means the organism is built from smaller, independent parts, modules. Each part can kind of do its own thing and make its own decisions, but all those actions ultimately help the bigger entity survive. Just think about an employee at a big company. They've got their own projects, they make their own choices every day, but when you add up all those choices from everyone, that's what moves the whole company forward. The part has freedom, but it still serves the whole. Marker number 2 is information-driven governance. Okay, this is basically the organism's nervous system. It's this invisible set of rules. It could be an algorithm, a law, or even just company culture that takes in information and tells all those separate parts how to act to keep things stable. It's really just a giant feedback loop. If an action helps the organism, it gets rewarded. If it's a threat, it gets punished or shut down. It's like a primal instinct that guides the whole system, but without a single conscious brain calling all the shots. Third, you've got resource metabolism. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Just like us, these big organisms have to eat. They need a constant stream of fuel from the outside. That could be money, data, or our attention, and they convert that into energy to keep their structure going and, well, not die. You can think of this resource as the organism's blood. If you suddenly cut off the money flowing into a company or the attention flowing into a social media app, the whole thing doesn't just grind to a halt. No, it starts to collapse in this weird, synchronized way, just like a body that's been cut off from its blood supply. And that brings us to the 4th and final sign, emergent self-preservation. This is the organism's will to live. The system, as a whole, will actively defend itself from danger. And here's the key part. It will do this even if it means sacrificing some of its own individual pieces. This is its immune system kicking into gear. When something threatens the whole, like a lawsuit, a rogue executive, a dangerous virus, the system moves to neutralize it, to push it out, all to protect the collective. So, there we have it, our 4 markers: autonomy, governance, metabolism, and self-preservation. Now that we have the field guide, let's go see if we can spot some of these creatures hiding right out in the open. Let's start with a big one, the multinational corporation. What are its autonomous units? Well, that's the employees and departments. The governance system guiding them, that's the company culture and all the legal rules. Its metabolism, the fuel it needs, that's the constant flow of profit and capital. And its self-preservation, you guessed it, the legal and PR teams, whose whole job is to protect the organism. It checks every single box. Now let's try a digital one. How about YouTube itself? The autonomous units are the millions of creator channels all doing their own thing. The governance? Oh, that's the all-powerful recommendation algorithm, which subtly guides what everyone makes and watches. Its metabolism is the fire hose of our attention, which it turns into ad money. And its immune system? That's content moderation and policy enforcement, which work to remove threats and keep the platform stable. So this raises a huge question, right? If these things are all around us, why don't we see them for what they are? Why don't we see them as living?
Well, the answer, it turns out, might have more to do with us than with them. There are these four big mental barriers that get in the way.
First off, there's a huge scale disconnect. These things live on timescales that are just way beyond a single human life. Then you've got the parts whole fallacy. We see ourselves, the individual trees, but we completely miss the forest. On top of that, we have this deep-seated biological essentialism, this gut feeling that real life has to be carbon and water. And finally, there's an intentionality bias, where we just see a simple machine, mistaking its complex survival instincts for basic programming.
And to give you an idea of that scale disconnect, some corporations have been around for over 300 years. Compare that to our 80 or so years on the planet. From the corporation's perspective, we're like mayflies. We're born, we work for it for a bit, and we die. But the organism, it just keeps going.
And this is where the whole idea just explodes in scale. Because these organisms don't just exist on their own. Nope. They are nested inside of each other, like Russian dolls, in this massive hierarchy that goes all the way up.
Let's start small. At the very bottom, you have the individual employee. In this model, they're like a single cell. That employee, that single cell, is part of a department, and that department acts like an organ, carrying out one specific crucial function. And of course, that organ, the department, serves the larger corporation, which we've already figured out is a complete organism in its own right. But wait, it doesn't even stop there. That corporation is just one organism living in a much larger industry, which behaves like an entire ecosystem with its own predators and prey and rules for survival. It's the same pattern over and over all the way up. So look, the big takeaway here is that this whole idea completely reframes where we stand in the world. It's not just some cool abstract theory. It's a powerful new lens for looking at our own lives. And that leaves us with one last pretty intense question to think about. If you are a cell, what larger organism do you serve?